billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to one and all. First, Jazakallah khair for making time this afternoon, last weekend before school begins. For nothing could be more important than the title of this afternoon session, Connecting with Allah. And we're really delighted and pleased to have an old friend. It's the second time Islamic Forum is hosting it in this venue. Our dear friend and Shaykh Ihsaan Kolia. Ihsaan hails from Lens Sharif in the outskirts of Johannesburg. After completing his, he's studied under several different shuyukh, including the late Shaykh Taha Quran in Strand. He also studied in parts of Gauteng, Egypt, Syria, and then eventually found his home. Unfortunately, we've lost him to Yemen, Allah knows for how long, for at least 13, 14 years now. So he's in Hadramaut, studying under Habib Umar and many of the shuyukh in that region. He's a delightful individual. We don't say too much in terms of introduction, but this is very much part of what we're trying to build here at the Islamic Forum, a community built on ilm, dhikr, and action. And that's really, as we approach the end of times, holding on to this deen is incredibly important, and ilm is critical for that. And so taking ilm from credible sources, from people who are connected to Allah, is quite important, and connecting ourselves with Allah is essentially why we're here. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Shaykh Ihsaan. So we'll commence now with Shaykh Ihsaan. We'll pray Asr in about 5:15. After 5:30 we'll have some dhikr, and then we'll from 18:30 to Maghrib we'll do some more dhikr further to that, and as in when time allows, we'll make adjustments to the program. So Jazakallah khair for joining us. And look out for further Islamic Forum programs, and any suggestions, any visiting scholars, any visiting individuals. Please, this forum is here for the Muslim community. It's an open space, as Jalaluddin Rumi says, come as you are. We want to have this open for the community in all respects. So Jazakallah khair, Shaykh Ihsaan.
وقال سبحانه وتعالى اتل ما أوحي إليك من الكتاب وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر. وقال تبارك وتعالى قل ادعوا الله أو ادعوا الرحمن أيما تدعوا فله الأسماء الحسنى. صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Jazakallah khair to our brothers and sisters for hosting us in this program today. We are honored to be in the city of Durban amongst familiar faces, people that we grew up with from a young age. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessings of friends, for the blessings of family, for the blessings of being able to gather for His sake. And always we remind ourselves for our intentions and the reason why we come to such gatherings. We always have to remind ourselves that when we come to such gatherings, we are coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ mentions in the Hadith al-Qudsi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that whoever comes to me walking, I come to him running. We all know the very famous hadith. So the intention, the determination, the sincerity with which you come to such gatherings, not just gatherings like this, but your daily salah, your dhikr sessions, your Quran, even your schooling. If it's done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you intend to go to Allah, all you then need to wait for is for Allah to come to you. And the sincere people of Allah, they feel Allah coming to them before they even come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because a generous person, if he knows that you are coming with a gift to him, he's prepared even more gifts for you. So if we come sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has indeed prepared wondrous spiritual gifts which no person will need except that they will attain them whether they realize it or not, inshallah ta'ala. The topic of discussion for today in this, inshallah, it's a long session, but we hope it can even be a bit of an interactive session. Generally, we don't like to speak about things except if people have questions around it. And so if people have any questions, they can feel free to ask. They can ask themselves, or they can even write it forward during the course of the session, so we can maybe focus on things which are on people's hearts and minds. The purpose of us coming here today, on one of my first trips back from Tarim, when I spoke to our teacher and I told him I'm coming back to South Africa, it was for a family need, and as many people that come from South Africa complain about the situation in South Africa, especially amongst the Muslims, and the fragmented nature of the Muslim society, with different groups bickering amongst themselves and fighting. We are all aware of the situation. And I was trying to explain to him the history of South Africa and things, and he just remained silent. And I realized after a while that, you know what, you don't talk too much in the company of the Kolia, they know, you rather keep quiet. And he told me, he said, our purpose is to connect the creation to the Creator. And anything that distracts from that, we have nothing to do with it. And it is with this focus that we should interact with all of our fellow human beings, societies, groups, friends. We do things and we support each other in things that bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And anything else, no matter how glamorous it is, if it distracts you from Allah, or you don't feel that you're getting closer to Allah, then there's no need to be involved with it. So, because we are talking about dhikr and we are talking about how to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically through dhikr, we will mention, inshallah, a few things that can be said about the science of dhikr. The Prophet ﷺ, in many ahadith, has espoused the importance of dhikr. In the verses of the Quran that we recited, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu dhkurullaha dhikran kathiran. Surah Al-Ahzab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you who believe, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly. Over and above that remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly, وَسَبِّحُوهُ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. Remember Allah abundantly, but in addition to that, سَبِّحُوهُ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. Celebrate His praises in the morning and the evening. The only command in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in the Quran to do without limit and without restriction is His dhikr. To such an extent that the awliya or the ulama of the Quran would say that there is nothing greater than the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any of the forms of ibadah. It can be done at any time, in any place, in any state. A person can remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what we need to ask ourselves is, what are we doing when we are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who can maybe, when you sit down to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are you actually doing? Who can tell? Or when you take the Quran, we're talking specifically about dhikr, and a person's life is dhikr, going to work is dhikr, and speaking kindly to your wife and children is dhikr. But when you're specifically sitting and you want to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with these beautiful names or the formulations of dhikr that we have been taught, what are we actually doing? Please feel free to. We're talking to Allah. What are we doing when we remember and we sit and we want to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? All of us do dhikr, right? Why do we do the dhikr? What is your intention? When you go and pick up the misbah, you pick up the Quran, what do you just do it in a rote parrot fashion? To please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
We want to take benefit from it.
We want to take benefit.
Gain closeness.
You want to gain closeness, yes. Do you need to actually be saying something when you want to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How many of us sit down in a specific time in a private quarter of your house just to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? To spend time with Him. When the term which is used for the awliya, the English term they translate it as Gnostics, but we'll say the arifin, the knowers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why do they call them knowers of Allah?
Spend time with Him.
Because they know Allah. How do you get to know someone? You have to spend time with them. The more time you spend with Allah, the more you get to know Him. It's as simple as that. And the difference between us and the awliya is they're just spending more time with Allah than us. Right? But the nature of spending time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, it's almost like, if you were to strike an example, a person when he gets married, before you get married, what do? You say, I have to get to know my wife. So there's the engagement period and the time. From the strictly Sharia perspective, you're allowed a Sharia gaze. Why is that? To get to know her. Okay, you get married. The first time that you're spending and you're sitting with your spouse, are you comfortable or are you shy? If you obviously haven't had any private previous contact before, you are shy. Why are you shy? Because you don't know her. Or what happens after living together and interacting and spending time together? Right? You get to know each other. And the things you can say to your wife after 5 years of marriage, or the things you can say to your spouse after 5 years of marriage, are not the same things you can say, or you were saying at the beginning. In the same way, the things that you are saying in your du'as and in your dhikrs and in your heart's tongue to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 5 years ago should not be the same thing today, if you have been spending time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the simple reality is that if you make that time just to sit with Allah, Allah is going to open. That's what He said, come to me walking. If you come to me walking, I'll come to you running. And one of the concepts that we need to bring in our minds over and above just reading Quran and doing dhikr is to allocate time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Over and above our salah and all the ibadah that we do. For example, everyone knows their schedules. It can be any time of the day or any time of the night. So for example, if it's 10 o'clock at night, I undertake that every day at 10 o'clock I'm making an appointment to be with Allah. I find the time in my house, in my room. Imam Ghazali says, even if you don't have a private place, throw a shawl over your head. Prepare, take ghusl, take wudu, wear your perfume, do the bukhur thing. That preparation in and of itself, if you're just thinking about it now, right? What do you expect when you're going to sit now in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And if you give Him this importance, as we give everything else, importance of our lives. And you sit there with your head bowed down, you don't even need to carry a tasbih, and your intention is, Ya Allah, I've come here just to be with you. Spend time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And try this just for 1 week. And diarize what happens to you. And you don't need to say anything. If you don't know what to say, you say, Ya Allah, I don't know what to say because I don't know you. I've never spent time with you before. I've never been, if you can use it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want you to speak fluent language with Him. He wants you to bring your heart to Him. He wants you to come with your brokenness. The people of Allah say, Siru ilallah urjan wa makasir. Don't wait because you still have that sin that you were thinking you need to give up, but you're not sure when you are. Siru ilallah urjan wa makasir. Travel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala broken and crippled. Because if you want to come to Allah when you think you are in a perfect state, then you're coming with pride in your heart because you think you have something to offer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole purpose of spending the time with Allah is, Ya Allah, I need you to sort me out. And I have these problems, and I have these diseases, and I have all these issues. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then becomes not just your friend and your counselor, He becomes everything. And that session that you sit with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I promise you, if you do this on a daily basis, 5 minutes become 10, and 10 become 20, and 20 minutes become hours, and hours become the entire night, and you don't even realize that the Adhan of Fajr is going, and you're involved in in the sweetest communion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And it's as simple as just allocating that time every day. But when you try it, then you know the degree of which your heart is attached to other things. And the difference between us and the people of Allah is that they give priority to this time of Allah over priority to people. Whereas we give priority to people and will sacrifice this time of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we see it in how, if you want to gauge your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just look at your 5 times salah. How keen are you to read your 5 times salah at its first appointed time? And for the men in the masjid with jama'ah. That is the definition of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the first step for anyone who wants to start or is complaining about anything in their lives, whether it's psychological problems, family problems, any problems at all, we always start with our salah. People want high convoluted solutions. Just go back to your salah at its first time. Women, if they are at home, when adhan is given, leave everything. As easy as it's possible to leave. For example, if you have obviously children and things, but don't give preference to something else over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the men try and be in the masjid. And continue that for just a week. And see how your state changes. Those problems which you thought existed start solving themselves. Why? Is because now you're giving priority to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if this is just with a paradigm shift in the way we look at our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what happens when you start spending this time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He inspires you to start saying, start speaking, and start doing things which you never knew you were able to do before. So for example, we've all been told that the Prophet ﷺ said you should do this, you should do that, you should, when you enter the house, you should read this dua, you should read that dua. We have what's called the Wird al-Am, which Rashad has mentioned, which is done on a daily basis. So many mashayikh have prescriptions of dhikr, which they ask you to do. And people that are connected to a shaykh, the shaykh will have maybe a book of dhikr, and you have to do this after Fajr, and do this after Dhuhr, and do this after Asr. It's small adhkar, and as you progress, it can become longer and longer. We know after the salah, the Prophet ﷺ read certain du'as, which we call sunnah. And what is the significance of the prescriptive adhkar? Why do we do the prescriptive adhkar? The prescriptive adhkar is like keys to a car. We can use an example. If you bought your son a very nice car, you gave him the key. What's the nice cars that are now these days people drive? I haven't been around. I don't know the names. Tesla. All right. So you buy your car, you buy your son or your daughter a Tesla, and you come and you give her the key, and she or he's over the moon. She goes to all her friends or his friends, right? Showing the key. Listen, check. My mother gave me this Tesla. And days go when she's posting the key on her, pictures of the car and the key, but she never gets into the car. He never gets into the car and actually drives it. Right? What do you think of such a person? Imagine days and days and years are going, everyone sees this person flashing the key, but they're never actually driving the car.
Yeah, but you're not using it.
You have a gift, but you're not using it. But what is the purpose of that gift in the first place? That child became happy because, oh, my father got me the car, so nice. Not realizing that the father wanted you to go from one place to another. Right? And the nature of the spiritual path is the same, that the Mashayikh want you to go from one place to another. And it wouldn't be a special path if everything was just laid out and everyone would be the same. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the greatest prize. And so it requires the greatest effort and the greatest competition. And so one day, the son of his daughter gets into the car and realizes, hey, you know what, I can actually go places. And he starts realizing, hey, mashallah, this car has different features that I haven't been exposed to. And they start experiencing what it's like to drive a car. Or drive a car which they haven't actually driven before. And spiritual experiences become the same if you use the prescriptive adhkar which has been given to us, but regularly. And then after a few years, the son or daughter realizes that, listen, there's a screen here and there's actually like a map on it. But hey, wait, this map actually is indicating and pointing towards a certain place. And they suddenly realize that there's actually a puzzle on this map. And they start trying to discover and figure it out. Every time they try to go to a certain place, they fall into a dead end. Every time they follow the map, until after many, many weeks, they come to the car and it's at a certain place and there's a huge treasure that's there. For anything you want, you can say there's a treasure of gold which will last this person for the entire life or generations to come. So when the father or the mother gave the child that key, what did they want? What did they want for them? They wanted the treasure for them. But they had to go through that entire journey. If they use the key, well, in the exact same way, the Prophet ﷺ loves for us what he loves for himself, and even more than what he loves for himself. And he is someone who is the most proximate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and enjoys the biggest of all spiritual blessings and spiritual secrets. And harisun alaykum, he is ardently anxious over you, he desires for you. But in the spiritual path, there are things that cannot be laid out all in simple words. Otherwise, what's the whole purpose of why hasn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed himself to us in this world? Because that's the test of faith. That we الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, those who believe in the unseen, meaning we take what was given to us and we believe it with complete conviction. And if a person wants to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they need to take these prescriptions that were given by the awliya with complete conviction and do them on a regular basis. Shaykh from Jordan, he says, after he had traversed the spiritual path, and alhamdulillah, Allah opened up for him huge spiritual stations, he writes in his book, Sea Without Shore, which is a very important book, especially for Westerners to read. He said, the great spiritual openings and things which we had heard about, I realized that no one will achieve them unless they spend a minimum amount of 3 to 4 hours a day in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for at least 7 to 10 years consecutively. Is it difficult? It's not difficult. It starts with those 5 minutes. No one's saying start 4 to 5 hours. It's today. The decision you make tonight at 10 o'clock, if you made it at your time, that defines what's going to be your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come to you or not? And every delay that you make is just a day closer that we might not get that opportunity. And so the purpose of the adhkar, which is given by the awliya and the salihin, is to connect us and connect our hearts and to align our souls. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has breathed in to us from His soul. وَنَفَخَ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِهِ. We all contain within us this ruh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which wants to go back to its origin and wants to go back to its source. And the only way in which enlightenment can happen, spiritual enlightenment, intellectual, emotional, is through the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that happens on earth, everything that happens in this universe, first manifests itself on the spiritual plane. And then from the spiritual plane, it comes down into the psychological plane and then into the physical world. And that is why we find people who are able to cure, or have you heard of raqis, people when they have an illness, they go and they get read over by a certain sheikh. And physical diseases sometimes which even doctors aren't able to cure, they get cured. Why is it? Because in this, the hadith of, in the lifetime of the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, in the battle, Sayyidina Qatada radiallahu anhu, his eye was popped out. And what did he do? He came to the Prophet ﷺ and just wiped on his eye and it was back. Eye surgery with no laser and no anything else. How is that possible? Because the Prophet ﷺ was connected to the source. The unique relationship that a dhakir or someone who spends time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is such, in the same hadith, the servant continues to draw closer to me with nothing more beloved than what I have made obligatory upon him, and he continues to draw closer to me with his superiority acts until I love him. And so the second purpose of dhikr is to become beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many times we all make dua for our children, right? Allah, make my child the most intelligent, make him the best, at this, make him the best hafiz, make him the best alim, make him the best doctor, make him the best lawyer. Our own spiritual diseases and desire for fame, what do? We impose those spiritual diseases in our du'as for our children. And we're asking Allah to make our children famous. Whereas fame might not even be in their well-being. Right? How many times are we not connected to people? For example, we might even see awliya and salihin. We might hear a talk by Hamza Yusuf, or we might like this particular Shaykh, Shaykh Ahmad Sulaiman, and mashallah, we like what they're saying, we follow whatever they're saying. Not realizing that, are we really imbibing what they're saying, or is our own desire for fame somewhere hidden in wanting what they have? Because we see them as famous, we like what they actually saying. And so the purpose of wanting to become or wanting to spend time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to become beloved to Him, no matter what the cost. Whether it means we attain fame or we don't attain fame, whether it means we are rich, we attain wealth or we don't attain wealth. And therefore we always make the dua in all of our requests to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fi khayrin wa lutfin wa afiyah. May Allah grant us this if it is good for me in goodness, in gentleness and well-being. And our desire should always be that, Ya Allah, make me your beloved, bi khayrin wa lutfin wa afiyah. Whatever it means. In this world, I don't care if I have status with people or I don't have status with people. But if I'm beloved in your eyes, then nothing else matters. And one of the biggest veils of becoming acquainted with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what they call mulahadatil aghyar. What is aghyar? If you're sitting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or imagine you're sitting with your wife in a restaurant, but you're looking at another woman. Or you're sitting with your husband in a restaurant, you're looking at another man. You are looking at ghayrihi, you are looking at other than him. And a person who wants to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their hearts cannot be connected to other than him. Mulahadatil aghyar, we are concerned about what people and what others are thinking about us. And so in the masjid, I'll give you a practical example, right? Practical example. I'm going to count to 3, right? And I want all of you to say Allahu Akbar. But I want you to raise your voice to the extent of your love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the love you desire to have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 1, 2, 3.
Allahu Akbar.
1, 2, 3.
Allahu Akbar.
Why are you guys smiling? How many of you now, in saying Allahu Akbar, in that split second, are wondering, how's my voice going to sound? Who's next to me? What's this one going to think about me? Right? This is what distracts us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you're in the masjid or you're in Taraweeh, and the Imam is reading, and you feel the tears coming, what starts coming to your mind? People, other people. This one's going to see me, this snot's going to run down my face, what am I going to do when I make salam, you know? Another example. You're driving in the car. Who likes anashid? Who likes beautiful recitation of the Quran? We've all listened to it, all memorized some of Shaykh Abdul Basit or whatever the qasidas are. So you're driving to work or you're driving to campus and you're sitting in the car and you're singing, right? Or you're reading a verse of the Quran. And as you're driving, you're reading those verses of the Quran, but what's in your mind? I was reading this verse at a certain jalsa or at tomorrow's gathering. Oh man, those people are going to be amazed at my voice, right? When I'm going to give a talk at university, the talk's tomorrow, but you're already thinking of how are people going to respond to my talk. Do we experience this or don't we experience this? Right? This is mulahadatil aghyar. You are in the car, you are alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you are reading the Quran, which is the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but where's your heart? Your heart, what are people going to think about you? How can I impress people? How many of us will go today or tonight or tomorrow, or when you're in the car, and I'm going to practice those verses of Quran, whether it's Surah Al-Duha, the way I heard Qari Basit reading it, or I'm going to learn this qasida, and I'm going to go tonight, Ya Allah, and I'm going to read it for your sake. I'm going to prepare the best recitation of Quran that I ever prepared, Ya Allah, tonight, and I'm going to read it for you. Oh Ya Rasulullah, I'm going to prepare the best poems of praise that I have heard, and I'm going to go tonight and present it to you, Ya Rasulullah, in my private quarters. How many of us have ever thought of doing this? And this is the difference between sincerity and riyah. Right? Sincerity means that you want to do it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You come to the lesson, whether there's one person or a million people, it doesn't make a difference. Because who are you talking to? You're talking for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who are you reading for? You're reading for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who are you preparing that qasida for? Whether it's in the jalsa or at home, there's no difference, because who are you doing it for? You're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the true people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they don't see people. They only see Allah. La mawjuda illallah. Nothing exists besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that happens in your life only happens because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed it to happen. The person comes and slaps you across the face, an untrained soul will think this person has no manners and you want to try and take revenge. But a person of Allah says, Allah has allowed this person to slap me across my face. Perhaps there is something I am deficient in my relationship with Allah. Perhaps there is something I am doing wrong with my relationship with Allah. The awliya and the salihin, if their wives just smirk at them, they would go and do 2 rakats salatul istighfar. Something's wrong with my relationship with Allah. That's why Allah's made my wife treat me in this way. And vice versa. They would say, even if I was walking on a horse and the horse slipped, it was because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted me to. In your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing should matter. It's not because I deserve this or I am so and so that this one should be treating me. Who controls people's hearts? Who controls people's minds? Who controls people's actions? Right? And that is why when the Prophet ﷺ, when he came back from Taif and he was stoned, in his first and one of the most beautiful du'as and expressions of communion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did he say? Oh Allah, these people, and he knows he is mahbub in Allah, he is the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is most beloved. Ilayka ashku dha'f. He says, to you I complain of my weakness and the littleness of my means. And then he goes on, إِن لَمْ تَكُنْ بِكَ غَضَبٌ عَلَيَّ فَلَا أُبَالِي. If you are not angry with me, then I don't care. Let anything happen to me, as long as you're not angry with me. And that should be our concern. If Allah is not angry with us, then come what may. They would say, even if Allah is pleased with a person, even if he enters the fire of Jahannam, the fire of Jahannam will not harm him, because a person who is in the rida, who is in the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the fire cannot harm him. This is what happened to Ibrahim alayhi salam. He was in the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was in complete satisfaction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, even while being thrown from the catapult, when Jibreel alayhi salam came to him to ask him, is there anything that you need, what did he say? Allah's knowing my condition is sufficient. Right? And we learn how to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we learn how to spend time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the people who are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the second part of understanding the importance of dhikr, and why we take our dhikr from Shaykh, and why we take our dhikr from authentic chains. When you study medicine, after you've done the theory for 6 years, what do they send you to do? An internship. What does an internship entail? You learn it practically. You spend time with other doctors. How many of you have ever seen a sports star or a tennis star or a golf star or any sports person become the most proficient at their game without a coach? Who can give me an example? Anyone heard of Maradona? What happened to him? He was a prodigy, right? But what happened? He refused to come under the guidance of a coach, and so he lost himself. And even in the business world, in the corporate world, and even in self-help books, they'll tell people, if you want to master something, don't study it, go spend time with the people who have mastered it. So you want to learn finance, go read all the books of finance, it's not going to help you. Go and spend 2-3 years with someone who's in investment, and you learn how to play the game. This is the law of life. And in the same way, a person who wants to become a person of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just go spend time with the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they'll teach you not even through their words, but through their actions. And this is a very, very important point. Right? And Imam Ghazali says, unfortunately, from the amount of human beings on the earth, only a few will tread the path. And from the few that tread the path, only few will make it. But the beauty of the path is that if you try it, then those that have made it will pull you along. Al-mar'u ma'aman, al-mar'u ma'ahab, al-mar'u ma'aman ahab. The Prophet said the person is with the one whom he loves. And so if we love the awliya, we love the salihin, and we love those who are the knowers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our hearts are attached to them, then to the best of our abilities we try to implement those things which they teach us how to come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when it comes to dhikr, and if we keep in mind these concepts which we have been speaking about, spending time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the intention to become beloved to Him. And this should be the most important things. Becoming beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be separated from becoming beloved to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because now that you want to be beloved to the Prophet to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Say if you إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ, if you claim to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you want to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you are lovers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. You want to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fine. You've come with your love. This is what's known as ma'arifa al-amma, general knowing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're doing the basics. But if you want ma'arifatul khassa, if you want that special divine recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you have to come under the guidance of a know of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this case, the verse is pointing to him. And if you do this, yuhbibkum Allah. Now, you are not coming with your love, Allah is coming with His love. And there's a difference between a person who loves Allah and someone whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And in the realm of the salihin, there are two types of people. There are people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved them from before He even created them. The prophets. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his coming was foretold in the Quran and in the Alam al-Arwah even before his manifestation in this world. And the inheritors of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam likewise. We hear the stories of many of the awliya and the salihin that their grandfather or their father gave the dear tidings that I saw a dream or something happened, or that so-and-so will give birth to a son and the son will become the leader or the spiritual leader or the alim of their time. These are known as Mahbubullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are the lovers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whom Allah loves. Because He loves them, He made them beloved to Himself. And the rest of people have to come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through them. So when we look at talent, it's the same thing as talent. Some people just have the talent. And so therefore they become the best at their thing. Practical, I mean we find in the world today that there are few real innovators. People that think out of the box. And to use practical examples, you've all heard of Elon Musk, for example, right? Everyone admires his mind and his way of thinking. And great intelligent people as well now come under his wing. And they will take his opinion. Why? Because he's been gifted with a certain gift. Who gave him that gift? Did he strive for it? Did he make an effort for it? Or certain stars, for example, soccer stars also, they have what we call is a natural born talent. So we need to find who are the natural born awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah made them that way, meaning they would be the means of us getting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a person needs to recognize this fact. Because what happens is, if you are not a natural born talent and someone wants to try and compete with someone who is a natural born talent, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? You get frustrated. You're trying to compete with something that's not your game. But if you come under their wing and you tell them, listen, train me, you seem to have, you know how to dribble better than teach me how to do it. What happens? They then bring you up to that level. And this is known as i'tiraf, recognizing those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made istifa of them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has istifa. Inna Allah istafa Adam wa Nuhan wa ala Ibrahim wa ala Imran ala al-alamin. Allah has chose Adam alayhi salam and Nuh alayhi salam and the family of Imran over all people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the prophets, what does he call them? Dhurriyatan ba'duha min ba'd. And so if we have i'tiraf and we recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have these beloved people and we are willing to come under their wing, then the path is open to us. Then things which we might have been doing for years and years and years, if we just do a little bit under their guidance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up the way because we've recognized how to approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the same thing why the Quraysh didn't come to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why they didn't accept Islam, was they just couldn't have this i'tiraf that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for this job. And if they kept, look at Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, if they had accepted Islam in their lifetime and they recognized what is the conversations happening between Quraysh? Conversations happening between Quraysh, do you know he's the messenger of Allah? Do you? Of course we know, the Jewish leaders would say he is the Prophet and we recognize him as our books. الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُم. Those whom we have given the scriptures recognize him as they recognize their own sons. So what are you going to do about it? It says we will engage in enmity and war with him until we die. Allah desired destruction for him. If they had believed till today, we would be saying radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. But because there was no i'tiraf, a person is not able to then tread the path. Coming to the dhikrs which we are advised to do, understanding that we need to first correct our intentions, make time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, desire to become proximate to Him and beloved to Him. And if you are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are not worried about anything else. And you're not concerned about who is above you and who is below you. Did you ever see people fighting over sunshine? You're taking too much of my sunshine. Get out of the sun. Right? When you come into the realm of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's enough to go around for. There's enough to go around for everyone. And everyone. But the manifestations of that are different. And in the path of coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will most definitely test your sincerity. Why are you doing this? And Imam al-Haddad says that some people even come to the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who are made, or they are there, Allah created them to bring people towards Him. But some people will come to the awliya for what reason? For the sake of name and fame. And there are three distractions, or three major distractions under which all spiritual diseases fall. Love for wealth, I call it the three W's. Women for men, women, wealth, and wajaha. Wajaha is fame. Okay? Imam al-Ghazali says a person, he might never accept the advances of a woman. Or a woman might never be charmed by a man because they fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when it comes to money and business dealings, they won't be able to refuse to deceive someone even a few cents. They are slaves to wealth. Another person might never steal a single cent, but if he has the opportunity to fall into a haram relationship, he'll never be able to prevent himself. He's a slave to men or women. And other people might never fall into these things, but because they are not at the forefront of anything, and they are not recognized, and they don't have the fame and the name, they fall into perdition. And the extent to which a person's soul is cleared or purified of these three things, that is the nature of your relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and doing dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and spending this time, Allah will test you. And so when you're reading your salah and you start realizing that, you know what, I'm not concentrating in my salah. Or even beyond that. Adhan goes and I'm sitting at home, and so shaitan, his first step is to prevent you from that action. don't do the dhikr, don't go for salah. Have your tea first. There's still time. His first step is to completely cut you off. And if he's done that, he's won. And instead of going or just remaining stagnant, you actually take a few steps back. If you then read your salah, what is his next step? Do it quickly, do it quickly. You got something to do. How many times you're on the musalla and all those things come to mind? And when you make the time to now sit with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be with Him, you start thinking about this one and that one and oh, you know what? And how many of us actually have this experience? You're reading the Quran, when you're doing dhikr, and the phone rings, or the message comes, and the mushaf is on the table, and you spent an hour with the phone and you just left the mushaf on the side. If we even pick up the mushaf, or if you've been doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So shaitan's second step is to make you rush through it. Do it quickly, so that there's no essence. Because the purpose of all ibadah is to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it distracts you from. So you start thinking, you know, I don't have any sincerity in my salah. I need to start performing my salah with more sincerity, with more presence of heart. And so when you're in the masjid, and you're reading your salah, and you start trying to, you know, to have presence of mind, I need to read slowly, so I won't rush through my salah. I read with complete concentration. I'm the only one in this masjid who reads with presence of heart. Everyone else rushes through this. Hey man, I'm the last one leaving the masjid. I've spent 10 minutes on just 4 rakats, man. No one's like me. I don't think anyone is like me now. So now he comes to you with what? He comes to you with pride. He comes to you with this showing off. And if Allah desires guidance, you start realizing that, oh, you know what? How can I, this is despicable. Who am I praying for? Who am I reading salah for? For people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you realize, you know what? I should actually be doing my salah with concentration in the private quarters of my home. And that will be better for my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so you go in the private quarters of your home and you start doing your dhikr and you start doing your salah, and no one can see you. But one day someone walks past the window and they see you, and they didn't see that you see them, but you become so happy that someone saw you in your private ibadah. That case when you go and tell people, hey, you know what, this guy spends private time in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You didn't do it for people, but when people found out, you became happy as though you were doing it for people. Still that heart is not purified. And you're not doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so you close the window, you make sure that never happens again. You don't even raise your voice so that no one can even hear you from outside. And you're doing the dhikr, or you're reading your salah, you're reading your Quran, and you start to experience these nice feelings and emotions, and perhaps, and then how does shaitan come? No one can see you, but you know what, when I go out amongst people, the effects of this dhikr is going to be so apparent. Only people are going to see the nur, people are going to see the spiritual state that I have. Is this the end of it? Imam Ghazali says this never ends. And shaitan will continue to attack you at every point until when? Until you realize that you cannot come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with yourself. And you throw yourself at His feet and say, Ya Allah, I can do nothing. If you do not accept me at your door, you do not purify me, you do not give me that sincerity, then I'm lost. And it's only after this mujahada, when throwing yourself at the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is done with utter despair, because you've tried, and you've tried, and you've tried, and you realize that, you know what, this really, I can't do it on my own. And these are the people that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes them, then they realize that it's only through because Allah wanted it, not because I did it, not because I have attained anything. And just as Allah is the one that takes you to Him, He is the one that can throw you out the next day. فَلَا يَأْمَنُ مَكْرَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. None fear the makr. Makr is like makr is like almost a sinister planning, right? When you give someone rope to hang themselves, that's makr. You let them do something thinking that they're actually benefiting, but in the end, you're going to pull them away. فَلَا يَأْمَنُ مَكْرَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. None are safe from the makr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except the losers. And the greatest or the people who are most fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are who? Are those who are most beloved to Him. Because at any point they fear that Allah can just throw the will down on them. Allah doesn't need us. Right? And if you want to look at an example in this worldly life, we've seen circus trainers when they, in the cage of the lion, and they've trained that lion for years and years to do certain things. And they come to a point now where they even call someone in the crowd, or you know those alligators, they open the head of the alligator and he puts his head inside. And he's gained closeness to this alligator, or to this lion, or to this tiger, and they have an understanding. Right? There's recognition. There might even be intimacy. There might even be love. But that's a wild animal. And how many times something just snaps and that lion takes his head, or takes the arm of that. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. But if you want to try and understand proximity in this way, that you don't know. Because as you get closer, you take into account more. Imam al-Junaid once saw a beggar come to the door and he thought, only this person would work, get a job, and not beg. And he went to sleep that night and he saw in a dream the angels coming to him with the dead flesh of the beggar, and they told him, eat. And he said, what is this? He said, you've backbited. I didn't say anything. I only thought about it. Yes. But someone on your level even thinking about this is not acceptable. Hasanatul abrar, sayyiatul muqarrabin. The good deeds of the abrar, of those who are pious, are regarded as sins by those who are in ultimate proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the wird al-am consists of istighfar, consists of la ilaha illallah, and consists of salutations of the Prophet ﷺ. They call it the wird al-am because every person has permission through the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ that has come to do these dhikrs. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in many ahadith the virtues of istighfar, the virtues of la ilaha illallah, virtues of different formulations, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-'ali al-'azim, la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahu al-mulku wa lahu al-hamdu, yuhyi wa yumiitu wa ala kulli shay'in qadir. The virtues of salutations of the Prophet ﷺ. And different spiritual paths have made each of these dhikrs a path in itself of how to attain proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when a person does istighfar, and a daily lesson of istighfar, and someone who's just coming on the spiritual path, what do they say? Begin with 100 la ilaha illallah in the mornings, 100 istighfar in the mornings and in the evenings. And the purpose of istighfar is takhalli. Takhalli means what? Takhalli means to get rid of something. So in approaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one cannot come with baggage. Or one needs to come and get rid of their baggage. And many of us, unfortunately, because we live in the West, and because perhaps we were not brought up in circles of dhikr, not brought up in the company of the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what happens? When we want to come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have wounds in our soul. And we need to start applying these spiritual band-aids. And those wounds and those spiritual band-aids are applied how? Through the istighfar and through the repentance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any sin that you fall into is only because in the deepest depths of your heart you haven't made the conviction to leave that sin. You might think, okay, this is a bad thing, but you haven't really, in the deepest depths of your heart, made the conviction to Allah to leave that sin. And you're still somehow enjoying it. And there's two things that will happen. You'll just continue in that way. Or, if Allah has mercy for you, that sin will put you into such difficulty that when you taste the difficulty that you are in and realize that it's because of that sin, you'll actually leave it. And to try and reverse understand how many times we find a person, we say they were exposed, a person might have been involved in theft, a person might have been involved in any type of sin, and Allah exposes them. Why do we say when Allah exposes a person? We think, oh, this person, he's got no station of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore Allah exposed him. Where sometimes the exposure is also a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah knows that such a person does not have fear of Him and has fear of people. And so He doesn't want to stop the sin because of me, So for people, and he fears now what people are going to say, so they stop listening because of what people are going to say. But that's the last straw. Because if Allah didn't want that for you, you just continue and a person can die being involved in major or minor sins. And so the first step is istighfar, right? And no person who wants to get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be involved in major sins. Or habitual minor sins. Habitual minor sins become like major sins. I don't know what to do, I don't know how to. Just do your istighfar. And in your time that you spend with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every night, you put to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that these are my sins, you forgive them, and you assist me and you help me to come out of it. One of the blessings of the company of the Salihin and the company of the pious is that there is a collective. Why do we read Salah in Jama'ah? We read Salah in Jama'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it comes in the Hadith al-Qudsi that the Prophet mentioned. The Hadith of the Prophet mentioned that when we read Salah in Jama'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the reward for every person that attended according to the level of the one who was most present with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there might have been one he was negligent in his Salah, but because of the barakah of the group. And then we have another very important hadith where the Prophet also mentions no people gather for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one of his houses, reciting his verses, mentioning his praises, except that the angels surround them, mercy envelops them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions them in a gathering greater than their gathering. And then the Prophet also says, the angels say, Allah, but so and so came to the gathering not for the sake of the dhikr. He had some other worldly. He was waiting, we say he was waiting for someone to come out of the gathering. Right? And when the story has been told by one of the Mashayikh to the Bedouins in Yemen, the Bedouin told the Shaykh, what's the business of that angel? What's he worried about? Why is the angel questioning the one person who wants to prevent him from the reward? What's the reply that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to that angel? We all know the hadith. هم القوم لا يشقى بهم جليسهم وأنا غفرت لهم. They are such a people that none who spend time in their company will be wretched. I have forgiven you. And so one of the quickest ways of gaining the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to find those circles of gatherings, those circles of dhikr, those gatherings in which the beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are present. Right? And a person can attain the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this. Why do you want to tread the path alone? Why do you want to struggle? Find someone to take you by the hand. And the gatherings of dhikr, the circles of dhikr, the gatherings of the awliya and the salihin, they have been established for that particular purpose. So we have the istighfar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The istighfar, and there's different formulations of istighfar. One can just say astaghfirullah, one can say astaghfirullah al-azim alladhi la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum wa atubu ilayh. Different types of istighfar, it doesn't matter. It's not important what you're saying, but it's important that at the time of doing the dhikr, what's in your mind and what's in your heart. The heart has a tongue. The heart has a tongue. And when you are doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with your physical tongue, you have to pay more attention to what you are saying with your heart's tongue. And we will explain a certain formulation of dhikr which explains this concept better. So one then can do the dhikr of La ilaha illallah. What is the significance of La ilaha illallah? La ilaha illallah contains all the secrets of the universe. It is the essence of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And the purpose of La ilaha illallah, which starts with negation, right? And we can say a few things about this, but it's only when you spend time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you will realize what is your La. And every person at a different phase in their life, their La will differ, right? So La is what? Negation. When you're sitting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what do you need to negate? You want to get rid of the sin that you're involved in. You want to get rid of pride or arrogance, right? La. Take it out of your heart. No, I say no to it. What is the ilah? What is that ilah of yours? What is that What have you made as an ilah other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You need to negate it. La ilaha. Right? La. And in your hearts, in the tongue of your heart, you need to say la to whatever sin that is. La, pride. La, ostentation. La, riya. Right? That's what you need to negate. And some people will even use these dhikrs as forms of cures. If you have a disease in your health, if you have a physical disease, a tumor, they would say la in your in the. And you can even imagine that place wherever the disease is, you're taking it out. La. You're taking the disease out of your heart, out of your mind. Right? If you are sinning with your eyes, la. You imagine the blackness and the darkness in those organs that you are committing sins with, la, taking it out completely. La ilaha. That ilah. The late Shaykh Quran, his teacher was Hafiz Abdul Rahman, his teacher, Hafiz Abdul Rahman Mia. His Shaykh was Shaykh Muhammad Zakaria Dahlawi, the famous author of Qadaya al-Amal. Imam Taha was a brilliant, brilliant scholar, and no one will ever know his brilliance unless they spend time with him. But what is natural with people of brilliance and geniuses is what's the other quality that usually comes with brilliance? Pride. And that's why Imam Ghazali says that, right, jealousy only exists amongst the ulama and amongst followers of the same shaykh or the same, what you call, a person who has a certain talent and people are following him. So people in the same corporate business or the same job description. Why? Is because they're all vying for each other. They're vying with each other for the same goal. So when a person is seeking knowledge, pride is a natural ancillary to that. And that is why people who study the deen or study any knowledge but they do not complement it with the science of the purification of the heart, what are you just creating? You're creating a blown up balloon of knowledge. And if you look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, I always tell some students who want to study the deen, is if you are wanting to study the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are treading a path to hell. Is it true or not? Whoever is studying to become an alim, you are on a path to hell. Whoever works in a charity organization, they are on a path to hell. Whoever fights in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are on the path to hell. Is that true or not? The Prophet told Abu Hurairah, Ya Abu Hurairah, do you know who are the first people for whom the fire of hell will be ignited in the day of Qiyamah? So Abu Hurairah said no. And the Prophet said who? He said the Qurra. The Qurra, the scholars. And it would be said to them on the day of Qiyamah, what did you do? Ya Allah, I learned the deen for your sake. And Allah would say, then you lied. You learned so that it could be said so and so is a learned scholar. And he will be thrown headlong into the fire. And so if you are studying the deen and you do not complement it with the purification of the heart to prevent you from doing it for the sake of people, then you're on the path to hell. And likewise, the person who gave charity. Why did you give charity, Allah, for your sake? No, you lied. So that people can say so and so is a charitable person. And likewise, the one who fought in the path of Allah. Why did you fight in the path of Allah? Ya Allah, to give victory to your religion? No, you have lied. So that people can say this is a brave person. And likewise in everything else that you can do. This constant concern of what people are going to think to us prevents us from connecting, prevents us from having that sincerity. So we have to learn, we have to negate these things. And every night, how many years, and we've all maybe had experiences in the past where, why do people watch movies? Why do people watch movies? Entertainment, right? But when you watch a movie, what are you waiting for? What are you looking for? Hey, looking for a good feeling. Everyone's just trying to tell a good story, right? You're just looking for a good a good story. You have to experience something well. You have to experience something nice. When a person spends time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every night becomes a different story. And every night becomes a different cup that you can drink from. Right? But you have to do this regularly. You have to do this on a daily basis. So if you're starting, and you remember spoke about the relationship that you have with your spouse when you just get married. So when you first come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the first days that you do dhikr, your la is going to be something. But if you are regular, and after a year of doing it, your la is going to be something else. Right? And from moving from sense and la, getting rid of things which are preventing you from coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and moving out of the veils of darkness, a person then needs to start even negating the veils of light. Because the purpose of coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not spiritual experiences, and it's not to feel nice. If today you went and you did the dhikr of Allah, and you know what, you just started, by the time you were in your 50th, la ilaha illallah, mashallah, you had these nice, you saw some things, whatever it is. Tomorrow nothing happens. Tomorrow you just feel, do you leave the dhikr? Do you leave it or do you continue? If you came to a state where you're okay, now you're going for half an hour. By 10 minutes you're just out of it, you're not feeling that connection. Do you continue or do you leave it? You know what, maybe tomorrow will be a better day. What do you do? What do you do? This is your test now. What are you doing it for the feelings? Or are you doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? And Allah is going to test you. Because many of us, the way life is, we only do things because of feelings. We only do things because of the kick we get out of it. And if you want to come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, initially you get these kicks, but you need to learn that it's just because I need to do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not even for the feeling and not even for anything. To such an extent that the awliya will even make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to open up for them any spiritual experiences which will distract them from Him. That is why Sayyidina Rabi al-Adawiyya would say, "My Allah, if I ask you for Jannah, out of love for it, then prevent me from it. And if I ask for protection out from the hellfire because of fear for it, then throw me headlong into it. But if I ask that the veils be removed, then do not prevent me from envisioning your countenance." And so your la changes, right? And your la of yesterday is not your la of today. La ilaha illallah. You're always pumping that heart, you're always filling that heart with illallah. You're always reminding yourself of this illallah. And some of the Sufi paths, they will even, just to impress this point of illallah, they will just do dhikr sometimes of illallah, 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 illallah. Just to remind the heart that illallah. That I don't even now want to be involved with the la. Because when you're involved sometimes with your sins, you can become so involved with your sins and your own deficiencies that you are now what? You're distracted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with your own self now. You're so concerned about wanting to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of purification of your own self, but your focus now is just on yourself, and you forget that it's illallah. So there's a certain point in which you need to worry about your spiritual diseases, right? But there's a certain point that you need to realize also that it's not even about me. It's only about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Where you don't even notice yourself anymore. And this is the state of what they call fana, right? The state where you fail to even recognize or fail to realize that I am the one doing the dhikr. If you still think I am the one doing the dhikr, then you are still ascribing a pardon to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is actually allowing your tongue to do dhikr. And some of the awliya would say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is actually doing the dhikr. We don't actually exist at all. So your la continues to change. When a person is doing this dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we'll speak later about this, what is called the Tariqat al-Idrusiyya after we break for Asr Salah. Anyone heard of Reiki? Who's heard of Reiki? Energy healing. What do they do? Right? They imagine themselves and put their hands and they'll say the earth, Allah is, or they'll say God has created energy in the earth, and so they'll raise the energies from the earth and then they'll go over this patient, and they even do it from a distance, right? And they will put their hands over this person and they will imagine that this light is coming out of this hand and the energy is onto this patient, whether it's a tumor or whatever. And does healing happen sometimes or not? Healing happens just through that himma, this, they call it the soul, right? The dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you continue, can start becoming even a prayer. Because your la now, I can be doing la, but I'm thinking that so and so is sick. La, Ya Allah, the intention, take out this disease from them. Take out this ailment from them. And you can start healing people from the private quarters of your home without anyone knowing. You can start healing people, and this might or might not happen. I'm just giving experiences of people who have shared their experiences on the path as well. And you can start becoming a healer of people from the private quarters of your home and no one even knows about it. Beyond that, can you partake in the jihad in Gaza by making la of the enemy's weapons, of the enemy's bombs? Allahu A'lam, everyone has their own experiences. But if we understand that who are we connecting with, when you're doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And you bring into your mind, when you say la and you are removing something, this is the dua you are making to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And does Allah have the power and the ability to remove that? Yes, of course. And so when we are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are connected to the source of all power. We are connecting to the one and only who has the ability to change people's hearts, to change people's minds, to change this country, to change the world, right? Can you take out la, can you take out kufr from the heart of every single person on the face of the earth? That's your intention, right? And a Muslim who might accept Islam 10 years later, you get the reward for doing it because your intention was that Allah gives them hidayah. And if your intention was for the entire world to get hidayah, you will get the reward on the day of Qiyamah. And so, what goes through your heart and mind when you do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those thoughts come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your heart is as pure as your thoughts. You know, if you have a pure heart, just look at your thoughts. If your thoughts are pure, your heart is pure. In Arabic, when we think of heart, when we say fu'ad and qalb, there are elements of what in English we would regard as thoughts as well. So if you want to make it easy for yourself, just focus on your thoughts when you are in the dhikr. Where are those thoughts coming from? And Imam Ghazali has a whole science of thoughts and how to know whether the thoughts are from Allah, or from the angels, or from the nafs, or from the shaitan. We'll speak more about that after the Asr Salah, inshallah.